Clara's arthritic fingers brushed dust off Wuthering Heights, wedged behind her fridge like a guilty secret. 60 years old, and she'd still never finished it. Spine cracked on page 72, where her late husband's coffee stain bloomed like a ghostly Rorschach test. London's drizzle tapped window, mocking her empty calendar. But then, scribbles in margins. A stranger's notes debating Heathcliff's hair, unwashed, tragic, lit. Below, an ad, book swap. Choose. Clara's arthritic fingers brushed dust off Wuthering Heights, its spine cracked like her own knees after 60 winters. She'd bought this copy decades ago, tucked inside it a train ticket from Edinburgh, first trip with James, back when passion burned brighter than her hip now ached. Grief had turned her into a clumsy step, tripping over memories like uneven pavement. But tonight, book wasn't just a relic. It was currency. London's last indie bookshop hummed with chatter, shelves bowing under paperbacks swapped like confessions. She hesitated gripping her novel like a life raft. What if no one wanted her dog-eared tragedy? What if she was just another grey, ghost-haunting self-help aisle? Bloody hell, she chided herself. James would have laughed, nudged her forward with a wink. She set book on swap table beside a thriller with a lipstick stain on page. A woman in a mustard cardigan, lit with energy of someone who'd survived worse than a tube delay, plucked it up. Brilliant choice, she murmured, sliding creator a memoir in exchange. Its cover was smooth as a pebble, warm from someone else's hands. By midnight, Clara found herself wedged between a divorcee dissecting Eat, Pray, Love and a bloke who quoted Alchemist like scripture. They passed biscuits, spilled tea, laughed loud enough to startle shop cat. No one called her poor dear, or asked how she coped. Here, grief wasn't a solitary confinement, it was a library, every story a borrowed light. She walked home, frost nipping her ankles, clutching new book. Its pages smelled of vanilla, and, faintly, of someone's perfume. James would have loved that. Clara's arthritic fingers brushed dust off Wuthering Heights, its spine cracked like her own knees after decades of London rain. She hadn't meant to start a revolution between musty shelves, but grief had a funny way of nudging people toward unexpected allies. 3 months after losing James, her husband of 38 years, creator found herself lingering too long in bookshops, tracing titles he'd never read. One damp Tuesday, she tripped over a stack of donated paperbacks, Pride and Prejudice sliding into Hobbit, and landed squarely in front of Marjorie, a retired librarian with a penchant for neon scarves and blunt truths. "Darling," Marjorie said, steadying her with hands that smelled of Earl Grey, "either you're auditioning for a slapstick comedy, or you've got a story to tell." Turns out, Marjorie ran a book club disguised as a tea-and-sass society. Meetings happened in back of a cozy Camden shop, where mismatched armchairs cradled widows, divorcees, and women who'd simply outlived their own expectations. Woman hesitated first, clutching her tattered novel like a shield. But then Marjorie swapped it for a gentleman in Moscow, winking. "Trust me. Grief's a sneaky editor, cuts out all joy if you let it." Week by week, she discovered magic of shared stories. They read memoirs, mysteries, even a lit romance novel that had them cackling over cucumber sandwiches. Each book left shop with a new reader, sticky notes tucked inside like secret messages. "You'll love page 72, think of James's terrible dancing," someone scribbled in her copy of Dancing Lughnasadh. One evening, woman brought in James's old hiking journal, its pages filled with his messy scrawl and pressed wildflowers. "Not exactly Wuthering Heights," she murmured, but Marjorie snatched it up. "Better. Real." Soon, others brought their own artifacts, recipe cards, love letters, a well-worn map of Brighton. Book club became a living archive, grief softened by laughter and occasional spilled sherry. By spring, woman led her first meeting, choosing Secret Garden for its stubborn blooms. Her hands shook less now, though she still mispronounced protagonist twice. Nobody minded. After all, stories weren't about perfection, they were about showing up, page after page, together. And as sunlight slanted through shop window, Clara realized her old novel hadn't been a shield all. It was a door, held open by hands she'd yet to meet. Clara's arthritic fingers brushed dust off Wuthering Heights, its spine cracked like her own knees after decades of London rain. 60 years of living had taught her books outlasted people, a truth both comforting and cruel. Tonight's book club meeting loomed, her third since Frank's passing. Grief had turned her into a hermit, but that dog-eared novel was a stubborn nudge toward living. Waterstone's event space smelled of overbrewed tea and ambition. She'd chosen it for community book swap, a chaotic pile of paperbacks where strangers left stories like breadcrumbs. Woman clutched her tattered Bronte, hesitating. What if no one took it? Worse, what if they did and hated it? A woman in a mustard yellow cardigan, mustard, honestly, plucked Middlemarch from heap with a reverence that made Clara's chest tighten. Maybe this wasn't daft. She'd bungled last meeting, rambling about Heathcliff's rage, when group discussed Eat Pray Love. But tonight's pick was Year of Magical Thinking, Didion's grief laid bare. She had underlined whole paragraphs, her pen shaking. Now, surrounded by women whose losses were tucked into handbags and half-smiles, she felt less like a cautionary tale and more like a person. Someone passed her a custard cream. Small victories. By evening's end, Wuthering Heights was gone, swapped for a well-loved copy of Joy in Morning. Irony wasn't lost on her. Frank had always called her his Stormy Cathy. Walking home, she detoured past Hatchard's, its lit windows glowing. A poster advertised next month's author talk, Writing Through Grief. Creator snorted. Typical. London loved packaging pain into something marketable. Still, she scribbled date on a receipt, her handwriting still Frank's favorite mess. Rain began its familiar drizzle as she turned onto her street. Novel in her bag weighed nothing, yet it anchored her. Books were quiet companions, never demanding she move on or stay strong. They simply waited, patient as saints. Clara's steps slowed near doorstep where Frank's boots once Saturday. For first time in months, she didn't hurry past them. Inside, she cracked open Joy in Morning, its margins filled with a stranger's pencil notes. A conversation in absentia. Upstairs, her bedside table held next month's pick, Gilead. Marilyn Robinson's words on Grace felt like a dare. Clara set it down, smoothing cover. 60 wasn't too old to learn that grief, like a well-worn book, could be carried without breaking you. Club would meet again. She'd bring biscuits. Maybe even wear mustard. Clara's arthritic fingers brushed dust off Wuthering Heights, its spine cracked with decades of heartache. Tonight, grief wouldn't win. Not when dog-eared pages held more than words, they carried echoes of James, his margin scribbles still sharp as his wit. She tucked novel under one arm, grabbed a tote stuffed with paperbacks, and marched toward community center, knees protesting like rusty hinges. Lit bookshop windows winked as she passed, their displays flaunting bestsellers creator couldn't care less about. Her mission wasn't trendy, it was raw, real. Inside center, folding chairs circled a table where her idea would either flop or fly, a book swap for shattered hearts. Skeptical glances followed her as she arranged dog-eared copies, each with a post-it note, read this when you're ready to feel less alone. A silver-haired man in a tweed blazer huffed, arms crossed. Another woo-woo grief group. Then woman pulled out her trump card, James's novel. She propped it on a stand, its cover facing room like a dare. A gasp rippled through crowd. Taped inside front flap was a photo of him mid-laugh, holding that very book. Below, his handwriting, Clara, burn this if it bores you. Love always wins. Her throat tightened, but she flicked photo lightly. Bet is cackling me right now. Room exhaled, laughter, not tears. Someone snapped a pic. Phones lit up. By midnight, Grief Book Swap was trending locally. Next morning, Tweed Skeptic shuffled in, clutching a battered Pride and Prejudice. My wife's, he muttered. She handed him Wuthering Heights without a word. He flipped to James's margin notes, Heathcliff's a drama queen. Anne barked a laugh. Crowd roared. Clara grinned, spine straighter than it had been in years. This was her start. And grief. It just met its match. Clara's arthritic fingers brushed dust off Wuthering Heights, its cracked spine whispering of storms weathered. 60 years young, she'd once devoured novels to escape loneliness after losing James. Now, that same book, dog-eared, tea-stained, became her compass. London's drizzle couldn't dampen her mission, a book club where grief wasn't buried, but bound into stories. She started small, stacking paperbacks on a bench in Regent's Park with a sign, "Take one. Leave one. Share why." Strangers paused, skeptical, until a woman in a polka-dot scarf swapped Pride and Prejudice for Alchemist, scrawling inside cover, "For when you need magic." Soon, Clara's weekly meetups at Soho Bookshop grew lit. Retirees, young mums, even a punk with a Tess of D'Urberville's tattoo traded dog-eared paperbacks and hard-won wisdom. Months later, Wuthering Heights reappeared, left by a widower who'd underlined, "Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are same." Clara grinned, adding her own note beside it, "Heights scaled together feel smaller." Her odd habit. She always tucked a wildflower between pages of returned books. "Seeds grow in dark places," she'd say, nudging a hesitant new member toward poetry section. By year's end, her club had spun off 3 more across London, each shelf a mosaic of lives stitched together by ink and heartache. Grief hadn't vanished. But now, it had company. Grab a book, leave your story between lines.